Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the more fascinating storylines for Michigan during fall camp that I feel like has just kind of flown under the radar because everybody's talking about the quarterback position is who's going to be wide receiver one in this Michigan offense, where you make no mistake about it, a significant portion of this passing attack is going to go through the tight end, specifically a guy like Colston Loveland. We continue to talk about Michigan, creating more explosive plays in the passing attack. We need wide receivers to kind of step up and make up for the production loss of guys like Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson moving on to the NFL. I think the good news for Michigan fans is it kind of sounds like Tyler Morris is taking over this wide receiver room, and we kind of fully expect him to be that wide receiver one for Michigan in the 2024 season. Want to dive into Tyler Morris, talk about as a player, what he brings to this Michigan program. I remember us breaking him down when he committed to Michigan in that 2022 class, saying this kid's a difference maker at the wide receiver position. He has a ton of juice. He's extremely versatile. And if Tyler Morris really does emerge as that wide receiver one, I think it significantly helps guys like Samaj Morgan kind of find their role and fill into their role within this Michigan offense. Want to talk about a few other players that you're starting to hear some buzz around with fall camp as well. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Michigan fans. Many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan. It's been an absolute blast talking this program all off season long, whether we're talking position battles, whether we're talking the recruiting trail. The amount of support, the amount of feedback, the amount of Go Blues that you guys throw in the comments section, that stuff means the world to the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Plenty to talk about over the next couple of weeks. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And let's start with Tyler Morris. And let's start with what kind of wide receiver Tyler Morris is. And let's go back to Tyler Morris coming out of high school, who was a top 100 national prospect, one of the more coveted wide receivers that we saw in the country in the 2022 class. And for good reason. Tyler Morris, you got to start with the juice. This is a kid that was a junior Olympic champion in the high jump. I mean, this is a twitchy, explosive individual that I think most importantly can kind of just do every single thing you want as a wide receiver. It's very easy to incorporate Tyler Morris into this Michigan passing attack, where you look at some of the other wide receivers in this room, they kind of have their niches, right? Samaj Morgan, a guy that you want to get the football to in his hands in space and let him operate after the catch. You look at a guy like Amarian Walker and say, let him work vertically down the field. He's big, he's long, he's fast. Go let him operate 20-plus yards down the field. But with those kind of wide receivers, I think at this point in their career, they're kind of pigeonholed into those kind of routes and concepts within this Michigan offense. You look at Tyler Morris and say, he's drawing Ronnie Bell comparisons, and you kind of agree. Like, what made Ronnie Bell so special is, one, he was just a really polished wide receiver that knew how to create separation. But I think more importantly, Ronnie Bell was a do-it-all wide receiver. You could line him up in the slot on third and short, have him create separation, those short intermediate route trees. You could line him up on the boundary, ask him to work vertically down the field. There was just never something that Ronnie Bell could not do for Michigan in that 2022 season. I kind of envisioned Tyler Morris in a very similar conversation, where this kid can operate after the catch. He can work vertically down the field. Again, very good vertical, can play kind of above the rim, so to speak, working down the field. But I think most importantly, he's a really smooth operator. Like, he knows how to create separation, whether it's on the boundary, whether it's in the slot. You can move him all around, and he can be that guy that if you need to move the chains on third and medium and you need a wide receiver to go find some space and create separation, Tyler Morris can be that guy. Now, I think why this is so important for Tyler Morris to emerge as that wide receiver one, you look at this Michigan depth chart and say, if we get Tyler Morris as that true wide receiver one, a guy that you can move all around this offense, you can kind of pigeonhole and kind of use guys like Samaj Morgan or a guy like Amarian Walker in the ways we want to use him, right? Samaj Morgan's not going to be a guy that is that big boundary wide receiver that can go make contested catches. That's just not the type of wide receiver Samaj Morgan is. If you can get some of that production from Tyler Morris, you can use Samaj Morgan as that slot wide receiver that you're giving screens to, that you're giving end arounds to. We knew Samaj Morgan was that kind of guy when he came out of high school, and we saw him used like that as a true freshman, right? End arounds, whether it's screens, let's get the football into his hands and let him operate in space. That's where he's at its best. And if Tyler Morris can emerge as that wide receiver one, we can, let Samaj Morgan operate where he operates best. I think you can say the exact same thing for a guy like Amarian Walker, who we'll kind of see what Amarian Walker looks like. I think one of the more fascinating offensive weapons within this Michigan offense, where you look at Amarian Walker and say he is big, he's long, he's fast, he can work vertically down the field. He's someone that safeties need to respect working vertically. But really, as of right now, that's kind of all we know he can do. And so we'll kind of see if Amarian Walker can be a little bit more of a well-rounded wide receiver. But if you have that well-rounded wide receiver in Tyler Morris, you can use Samaj Morgan and guys like Amarian Walker in kind of the ways that they were designed to use, that you want to use them. And I think, secondly, Tyler Morris is going to have a ton of opportunity because you look at how defenses are going to approach playing Michigan. Hey, we're going to have to put bodies in the box because we know they're going to run the football and we're going to run the football effectively. We know we have to have some sort of concept and some sort of scheme to deal with Colston Loveland at the tight end position. And so when you look at Tyler Morris, he's probably the third option in terms of how Michigan is going to attack opposing defenses. And if all that attention is going to the run game or tight end Colston Loveland, Tyler Morris is going to have opportunity to make some of those game-changing plays. And to hear Tyler Morris kind of emerging as that guy, now I think that's a massive storyline within this Michigan program. Another guy I want to shout out really quick is running back Jordan Marshall, who was a true freshman we haven't talked a ton about since he's been a high school recruit because he wasn't in for the spring. Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings are probably going to be the two bell cows in this running back room, but there's a lot of conversation about what that running back 3 position looks like. We got a lot of confidence in a guy like Benjamin Hall, who we've seen in the spring game run physically, attack the line of scrimmage, downhill, really good contact balance. Jordan Marshall at 5'10", 210 pounds, one of the things that makes me confident that Jordan Marshall can play early for Michigan is that he ran like a college football running back at the high school level. You remember Donovan Edwards and all the growing pains that he had to kind of go through when he was the best athlete on the field coming out of high school. He was a east and west kind of runner. I mean, he wanted to just bounce things out, operate in space. That stuff that worked in high school didn't necessarily translate to the collegiate level. Those are the normal growing pains that you see a lot of young running backs have. Jordan Marshall, you're not going to have those growing pains because this is a kid that wants to be physical, wants to attack the line of scrimmage, has an exceptional feel for that running back position. You look at Jordan Marshall as kind of a what kind of running back prototype he is. I don't know if there's an elite calling card that Jordan Marshall has, but the feel for the position, how complete of a running back he is, I think that at the running back position, that's going to translate awfully quickly to the collegiate level. So I would watch out for Jordan Marshall at that running back position, specifically in that running back 3 conversation. Now, going to the defensive side of the football, a couple of different things that we've been monitoring, and I think you continue to just hear really good things, and that is that cornerback 2, where we know we have a dude in Will Johnson who's going to be that cornerback 2. We brought in Amir Hall, who, again, I'm going to continue to bang the table for. I think it's going to play a lot, and I think it's going to play really well. What you're hearing about Jair Hill is really exciting. This was a kid that we love coming out in 2023, redshirted last year. He's 6'2", runs a 10.8 in the 100-meter dash. There's not a box physically that Jair Hill doesn't check. And then I think on top of that, he was up in front of the media the other day saying, hey, I am learning a lot from Will Johnson, who is a technician at the cornerback spot. Will Johnson, one of the more special cornerbacks that we've seen not only at Michigan, but in the college football level for the last maybe 2 decades. Will Johnson is that good, at least in my opinion, especially from a technician standpoint. I mean, what better guy can Jair Hill learn from, model his game after, than somebody like Will Johnson? And so to hear Jair Hill kind of emerging as that true cornerback too, not only that's massive for from a depth standpoint, but that kind of answers one of the biggest question marks that we had for Michigan at that cornerback 2 spot. And I think finally you look at that nickel roll, it sounds like Josiah Edmond might be kind of making a push as a true freshman, another guy that was a high 4-star prospect coming out of high school, kind of shot up late in the recruiting rankings. And look, we feel pretty good about Jaden McBurrow, Zeke Berry, but as we continue to kind of look for Michigan filling out the depth on the defensive side of the football, to hear some of these true freshmen be guys that it sounds like Michigan can rely on in 2024, I think that's a massive conversation to have. I get that is not always a fun conversation, but you go back to what made Michigan so special last year. We talk about it all the time. It was the depth within that defense. And so Josiah Edmond being a guy that Michigan might be able to count on, maybe given some flexibility in terms of how we want to use Jaden McBurrow and Zeke Berry. Again, this Wink Martindale defense, it's a rather positionless defense where guys are going to have all sorts of different responsibilities depending on what scheme we're running or what team we're playing. The more depth we have, the more versatile skill sets. That's just massive for this Michigan defense. We'll close it there. Big storyline. Tyler Morris emerging as that wide receiver one. We'll continue to talk about how some of these position battles continue to play out over the next couple of weeks. We'll close it there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.